Awesome. Hello, everyone. Today I got with me a person I came across recently on social media, uh, Simon, and who now is gonna go by the name Ouroboros in the practice that he engages in that he'll get to elaborate for us. The moniker, the title, the nickname. Ouroboros is the one he's adopted, and that's the one he's
My alchemy.
Alchemic name, yeah. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and where you grew up and how you ended up getting involved in this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Simon. My birth name is Jean. Actually, I was adopted by Canadians, born in Haiti. My adopted name is Simon, and my alchemaic name is Ouroboros. And I basically grew up in Montreal, normal life. Went to McGill University in chemical engineering. Well, I say normal life, but I mean, black kid with a black sister and a white family, with all that it can entail. But honestly, I had a great life. Never. I'm one of the lucky ones that never had to live this racism, this bigotry, and everything. And quite frankly, I never paid attention to it. There was always something inside me that said, "Don't pay attention to that. Just do your thing," and that's what I did. So, and it's funny because when I grew up as the only black kid, people didn't know how to relate to black people because they had never seen them other than on TV shows. So everybody would ask me if I knew how to play basketball, if I knew how to dance, if I liked Michael Jackson, and I had never heard of none of that shit. So I had to learn how to be black
Oh,
for a while until I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore.
black
Well,
people were that rare in Montreal?
Well, I lived in the suburbs. So in
Oh,
the end of '80s, beginning of the '90s, there weren't a lot of black people in the Montreal suburbs.
oh, I see, I see.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to live in a wealthy family, quote unquote. So maybe those neighborhoods weren't as accessible as they are right now, because right now there's a lot of black people where I lived, and yeah, thank God.
Hmm. Yeah. So, what led you to start looking into the subject of alchemy?
Well, it wasn't me that started looking into alchemy. It's alchemy that came grabbing me. And it's funny because it's I think it's the story of everyone that's living a life of checklists, a life of a life of routine, paycheck to paycheck, being in the grind, doing the work, making the money, chasing the girls, all that bullshit. And I'm pretty sure there's some people listening right now who felt the same or feel the same way as I felt maybe 3 years ago, when all those toys, all that money, all that quote unquote success came to a crashing realization where I was just not happy.
Hmm.
And it wasn't the next restaurant I was going to go to, the next mundane party I was going to attend, or the possibility for that next date, which was going to solve any of those problems. I was living a crisis. But back then, you talked to me about spirituality, I would have said, yeah. My mom was into Reiki, so I respected it. I didn't laugh openly about it, but I didn't acknowledge it at all.
What is into Reiki? I'm not familiar with it.
Reiki is the imposition of hands, so you can either touch somebody or
Uh-huh.
keep your hands above, and it's just a transfer of energy, of the transfer of life force, really.
Oh,
So you need to be able to draw life force, and you need to be able to conduct it in order to perform Reiki.
so this crisis
Yeah,
that you had to deal with in your life. By this point, you had already done school, and
yeah. I was
yeah.
35, no kids, no family.
Hmm.
So all my longtime friends weren't available for me on weekends. They had their stuff to handle. So I
Hmm.
was basically left to recreate my life over and over and over and over,
Hmm.
wanting some stability that fit the norm that I was obviously not getting for some reason. So
And
yeah.
I imagine you started seeking answers, seeing what the Bible got to say, what Buddhism got to say,
No,
etc.,
no,
etc.
the Bible. I had already gone to a Catholic high school that I got kicked out of because I intuitively didn't adhere to their bullshit. So the Bible thing wasn't going to work. So I did the raving thing instead. So I started going out on trips, doing the raves, and started and and I did my first psychedelic experience. And lucky enough, I didn't do a lot. I did like micro doses, but it gave me an experience where my mind was shut. And when I noticed my mind was shut, I was like, holy shit, this feels good. How can I get back to that state? So that's when I started reading books, The Power of Now, The Leap. I went into an array of various theories and hypotheses about spirituality and whatnot. And I found this book that talked about spiritual awakenings induced by psychedelics, and it gave me the first direction. First, it told me, okay, this is a plausible thing. I'm not just going crazy, I'm just feeling more stuff. And second, it gave me a framework. It told me if you don't build a spiritual practice, the only thing you're going to have to go back to that state are the drugs.
Hmm.
So I started venturing into the spiritual supermarket, if I could put it
Uh,
this way.
I see. But I'm surprised you describe your experience with psychedelics as being or as having shut your mind. Maybe
Yeah,
that's at the levels of microdosing. Have
yeah.
you ever gone beyond that? Because I
Well,
think it's certainly the opposite.
I've done more, like, let's say you talk about MDMA and all that stuff. I've had experiences with higher doses, but if you talk about what I consider to be, let's say, harder psychedelics like acid, like mescaline, like mushroom or psilocybin, I've only done microdoses. But I've ventured into ayahuasca, which I consider to be something else. I don't consider it to be a drug at all.
Oh,
Yeah,
but the other psychedelics are. There's
I
no.
consider them to be, yes, because they're ayahuasca allows you to get into a space of consciousness that acid doesn't allow you to get into, that psilocybin doesn't allow you to get into, and it becomes obvious that acid, the shrooms, and all that stuff, there's a part of it that's really recreational, and there's
Is it?
nothing recreational about
Don't you
ayahuasca.
think there's perhaps a threshold that if you exceed it, then it's no more recreational and more
No,
entheogenic?
no,
No,
no.
because I mean you're familiar with the name Terence McKenna, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
He would describe as anything 4 grams and above as being the heroic dose.
Yeah,
This is when you experience something called the ego death, and
yeah,
you come back a changed man. Is that
yeah.
still
I'm
recreational?
not doubting that it has an effect. I'm not doubting it at all. But having had the experiences I have with the ayahuasca and having done the alchemy, I recognize something else in those states that I don't want to get into.
Mm-hmm. So what lessons were you able to derive from your studies after your initial experiences with the microdosing?
Well, I mean, you mean about acid and all that stuff?
No, about spirituality.
That there's a lot of confusion about spirituality and what it's for, or what it should amount to, I should say. Um, because because my first experience with ayahuasca, I did it combined with alchemy. And alchemy is really about transformation. So there's a lot of, so you'll often hear alchemy as the discipline that changes stones to gold. And my first interaction, or the first time I heard about alchemy, I was probably a kid, and I was told about some people in their basement that wanted to turn lead into gold and get rich. And I was thinking, how stupid is that? But no one had taught me about the metaphor
Mhm.
that the stones are your energetic densities. And the gold is the gold of enlightenment. So it's really a discipline that allows an individual to transform his densities into light.
Perhaps
So
most don't even know that too.
most don't.
Yeah.
It's not the common current because there's a lot of stuff on Alchymie, a lot of stuff on the web. And what I learned after doing a lot of research about spirituality is that there's a lot of stuff out there. So just like you go to the supermarket, you can go in the aisles and buy tons of food and you'll be fed, you'll be full, but is it really nutritive? Like, is every food available at the supermarket actually good for the well-being of your system? And the answer is obviously no. And the same happens in spirituality. In the spiritual supermarket, in the religious consumerism, there's a lot of stuff being put out there. And is it actually good for spiritual equanimity? At all. But what amounts to true spirituality is not what we think. And my biggest aha moment was when I allowed myself to recognize that spirituality is a lot about clearing darkness, about clearing those influences we all have in us. That's commonly called ego. And the one thing about ego is most people won't recognize that they even have one. Just like most people don't recognize the darkness that they have.
So do you think these experiences or these realizations that you came to, they're very abstract, they're very profound? Do you get the impression that religions do a very poor job in presenting them? Are they sort of bastardizing it so it could be understandable to the average person, to the laity?
I'll give you a story. I'll tell you a story, and it's one of my masters that enlightened me to that perspective. And first of all, I want to say that all religions probably started with someone having realized consciousness or someone having an intense moment of enlightenment. So that I respect and that I recognize. But then this aspect of being able to support people in that intuitive realization for themselves, religions have done a piss poor job. And if you look at the Catholic Church, okay, which has a lot of followers, and if you're in that organization, the Pope represents divinity on earth. The Pope represents the spiritual master. So you look at a situation like COVID-19, where you have the Pope in his tower while people in Italy in the hospitals are dying. What are you doing praying from up there if you're so illuminated and you're a spiritual master? You should be down there healing the people. That's what you should be doing if you have that spiritual mastery. So people have been praying for 2,000 years, nothing happens. Okay? That stuff doesn't work. That stuff is milk for the babies. And it gives the spiritual aspect of life a very poor name. And it makes people just disregard and overlook that aspect. And it has an impact in our family life, in our business life, in our romantic life. People just don't have spiritual empowerment or the necessary spiritual empowerment that can allow them to understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling, why they're having that mental chatter all day long. Why do they feel conflicted? Why is there no coherence between their actions and what they want? There's something driving them to that conflict. There's something driving them to this energy drain, but people don't recognize it because it's spiritual of nature, and religions have done a formidable job at telling us everything that doesn't make sense about spirituality. Why is it that everyone intuitively just does not feel really good about the house of divinity? You walk in, the first thing you see is a human being on a cross. with blood all over him. Okay, that's a cool invitation. Okay, and then you have the representative of the divine power of the Pope. So you have the priest that's asking everybody to symbolically drink its blood, to symbolically eat its flesh. I don't know anybody that's ever drank blood and flesh. I don't do that. So why would I do that symbolically? What does it appeal to? Who does it really appeal to? Does it really appeal to the God of love that you have people symbolically drinking blood and eating flesh in front of a human sacrifice?
I think it was comedian Bill Hicks who said, if Jesus was to come back to the world, do you think he wants to see another cross again?
Well, in which sense? I'm not sure I understand it.
And the other thing is, think about this: if Jesus was born and living much
Yeah.
later in history, and if he was to be put to death, then it would have been the electric chair. So then would everybody be wearing electric chairs on their necks instead of crosses?
Yeah, it's so. Another thing one of my masters says is we live in the realm of the obvious, but what is obvious to one is not obvious to another. It depends on your consciousness. And when you look at religions, the way they mostly behave like political institutions. So it is what it is. The road to hell was paved with good intentions, so they say.
Another similarity that I noticed between religions and politics, though, is partisanship. Some people will always vote Republican because their parents have voted Republican and their grandparents have voted Republican, and they don't really bother to analyze and assess the policies being put forward by candidates to see which is more viable.
You're completely right.
And that's the approach religious people take.
Yeah.
Just because my parents have done that, and I'll do the same.
But then you look at some books on hermetism, which is essentially alchemy. Are you still there, or did I lose you? Okay, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this book on
Yes. There's a book called the Kabbalion. The Kabbalion is a book on hermetism, and they have a definition of religion that's really powerful. Okay. To them, when they use the word religion, what it means is the intuitive realization of the existence of the all and one's relationship to it.
Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, it's just a recognition that there is a divine power. There is the all. There is an intelligence, an animating principle, a creative principle. And religion is that intuitive realization of the existence of the all and where you fit in the bigger picture.
But this creative principle or energy that's supposed to be immanent, right? And
immanent?
Yeah, supposed to be everywhere is present.
Yeah.
Is it not? So I mean, isn't that a particular perspective on the conception of divinity that is contrary to what's mainstream?
Well, I mean, of course, it's contrary to what's mainstream. Because if people were aligned to, so look at the way the world is. There's a silent disease that nobody's talking about: stress, anxiety, depression. And the COVID is just making it more obvious that everybody's living that shit. Everybody's stressed, everybody's anxious, a lot of people are depressed. And when you look at what the basic aspect is, it's an involuntary or unconscious activation of the stress response. You relate to life with the stress response. Something happens to you at work, you stress. Somebody says a comment that goes against your belief system, you defend. You stress, you defend, you get angry, you're jealous, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is what governs our our way of responding to reality. Right?
So a better approach would be to be passive. You're suggesting, or
I mean, you're using the word passive, but it's more than passive. It's about being connected to reality. Because if you're always stressing about something, you're always fearing something. Because at the end of the day, the stress response is the survival instinct, and the survival instinct, the flight or fight, is just a reaction to what is conceived as a fear of some sort.
hmm.
So if our response to the world is fear, we have the world that we're seeing before us everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey man, I was going to ask you the some of the books you may suggest that I may look up later, just to find out more about this stuff.
Well, the Kabbalion is a good book.
Kabbalion.
Yeah, the Kabbalion is a good book to begin
Is that
with.
like an ancient text translated, or is that a recent?
Oh, 1908.
1908. Okay, that ain't too
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good authors. Um, there's an author called Adidas Amraj, which
Mm-hmm.
is most of what he says is so shocking
Mm-hmm.
because it's not what we're used to in terms of spirituality. He puts our lives upside down,
Huh.
how it should
So,
be.
in your in the crisis or in the morass that you found
Mhm.
yourself stuck in, and once you started experimenting with certain stuff and you started studying spirituality, now how did you come across to meet the various people you have and then affiliate with them?
Pure synchronicity, pure synchronicity. Because I so I had my moment of awakening in Tulum. I met some people in Tulum that invited me at Burning Man, and at Burning Man, I met a woman that introduced me to alchemy. So pure synchronicities.
What is Tulum?
Tulum is a place in Mexico where
Oh.
there used to be BPM festival, and there also was and there's also a lot of festivities around New Year's. So this is a place where a lot of people go, chill, and you know rave, party, and some people are looking to evolve their consciousness the best way they can.
So this person you met in Burning Man, they first introduced you to alchemy. How did they describe it to you? Well,
Okay, yeah. Okay. So I remember where I was at. I only had the openness to respond internally. Okay, well, everybody's entitled to their own way of seeing things, and but that girl's really something else. I'm still gonna stick around. And she said, alchemy is prior to creation. Is the consciousness prior to creation?
consciousness prior to creation. What does that mean?
Exactly. And this is something that is very hard to explain. It's it has to be experienced because right now the ability we have to understand it is from the point of view of mind and from the point of view of our five senses. And alchemy is all about opening the heart, unlocking that dimension, that frequency of the heart, which is not available to us because we're living the way we are.
Hmm.
because all the stress we unconsciously live or generate for ourselves contracts us at an energetic level, which shuts that sixth sense, that heart awakening, that ability to connect to something greater. And once you connect to that something greater and you feel it, and when I say feel, I mean feeling as the ability to connect to something greater. I'm not talking about feelings and emotions. I'm talking about that a sense of feeling or a psychic ability, if you may. When you connect to that, you tell yourself, holy shit, this is what I've been looking for all my life. Being free from the entrapment of materiality.
And realizing something greater.
Excuse me?
And realizing something greater.
Or connect to something greater.
Do they also term that as gnosis?
Do they also term that as gnosis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is, huh?
Yeah. That you know that you know.
So you met this person, and then you got introduced to alchemy, and then you came back to Canada and started to seek out like-minded people who were studying.
So I met this person in 2017. I did my first celebration of life, which is the alchemy with the ayahuasca, in November of that year. And I waited until March of the following year to really do it again. And I did it in Venezuela for 11 days straight. And what I lived in 11 days straight was an eye-opening experience.
So was that with the shaman or not?
Alchemists, because shamanism and alchemy are two different disciplines. We recognize that shamanism in its highest tradition has some value. However, they're two different energetic spaces.
Is the end goal the same or no?
I believe the end goal is the same. It's just that shamanism has a lot of limitations inherent to it.
Could you elaborate on what those limitations are and what the distinctions are as well?
Well, I mean, shamanism comes from a tradition of spirituality that veneers many deities. And initially, ayahuasca was given to native people. And you can imagine that, let's say you have a tradition of having, let's say, the god of the wind, the god of the rain, the god of the sun, the god of the water, the god of like many gods. And then you take ayahuasca and all of a sudden you can see them. Of course, you're going to think it's God.
Mm-hmm.
But then does that get you any closer to connecting to God? If you're connecting to all those deities. And many shamans will tell you they wheel and deal with demons. It's not something they hide. And it becomes a game of who has the stronger demon. Really.
So ayahuasca practice in the conventional way, you're saying there are limitations to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are certainly testimonies of people who have gone through it and completely changed around and turned around their life.
It's the best example I can give you is if you're living in depression and all that shit, and you're at basement 5 and you're brought to the ground floor seems amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Ground floor is amazing. And then you do it again because you're feeling, okay, maybe I'll get to ground 5, 10 and all that stuff, but somehow there's a limitation. You can only get to ground floor or maybe first floor. And that with the added aspect of not understanding that there's a penthouse somewhere. Is it after 100 floors? Is it after 1,000 floors? Is it after 1,000,000 floor? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a limitation.
So in the actual process,
Mm-hmm.
when a person is experiencing, there's a difference in how the alchemist would approach the
Yeah,
patient, if you could refer them, than the
yeah,
shaman.
yeah, because I mean, shamans have their chants, right? They have their tools. They call their entities.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is a process to clear that from us, because it's a recognition. Alchemy is a recognition that there's only God, only light, only love. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Only God. And once you recognize the reality of only God, you don't need to get in fights as to whose God is better or whatnot. No, you can call him whatever you want. Only God. So that solved that problem.
Only God.
Recognizing what you're connected to,
Hmm.
what's speaking to you, right?
Hmm. So, would you say that these shamans have a polytheistic perception of God, and you guys have more so a monotheistic one, or
I mean,
or
I'm
something
not
different?
going to go in that type of branding because it's not my forte. All I can talk about is the experience, and all I can really attest to is the possibilities that it offers. But it depends on what people recognize and what people are looking for. Because alchemy, there's nothing easy about alchemy, nothing easy at all.
Mm-hmm.
Once you recognize that human potential and you see where you are compared to what you recognize and what you feel, it just becomes natural, and you do it.
So, now I've seen the document that you sent me. It's described as a 3-day process.
Yeah,
Uh, are you able to detail some of them? It says
yeah, yeah,
Friday
absolutely.
transformation, Saturday Mars, Venus, and
Yeah.
relationships,
So,
Sunday something else.
so the transformation practice is a beautiful practice because essentially it shows us what our limitations are in order to fully accept, in order to have the disposition to receive transformation. Because you have to be willing to receive, you have to be willing to give up control. And ego is all about control. It's all about fitting what's happening in some case where it makes sense to us. Nothing makes sense. Nothing in alchemy makes sense. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's intuitive. It goes beyond the paradoxes of logic.
Mm-hmm.
It brings us beyond the limitations of reason.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be willing to dive, to make the dive. So the first day of transformation is about that. And what goes on during a practice is that there's normally a beginning. So we would use medicines like tobacco to get us in the first space of consciousness where we begin to clear aspects that relate to the mind's eye. And then we would perform a series of affirmations in order to clear the space energetically.
What does that involve?
Well, it involves just making sure that the influences that do not want this consciousness to ground be removed. Because there's a reason why alchemy isn't so popular. It's because there's a lot of stuff inside us that doesn't want us to do alchemy.
Huh.
There's a lot of stuff inside us that wants to keep us in unconsciousness. And the many ways it manifests is, well, this guy, he thinks he has the truth. I have my own truth. Fine. I don't think I have the truth. I've recognized something that I do, that I want to share for those who will be allowed. And the only person that can allow you to step in this place is you.
Mm-hmm.
Is whether you're your karmic dispositions allow you to have the openness to say, I'm going to try that. I'm going to see it for myself. I'm going to do it 3 days, and I'm going to make the decision after 3 days to see what the heck do I think about it. Because anything before that is just bullshit. And I was lucky enough to be able to overcome those, because in my process, I had to book a flight from Montreal to Miami, because Miami is the first place I did it after I went to Venezuela. And then I remember while I was booking the flight, something was telling me, oh, $500. Are you sure? And I was like, but then I had that girl. I was like, no, I trust her. And then I remember as I went to the airport, I was like, in the airplane, I'm like, holy shit, I'm actually on the airplane. I don't really know where. And then I was like, no, I trust her. And so I could recognize many moments where I wanted to just not do it. So I fully understand what's happening in people, what they're living.
Trust her? You mean the person you met in Nevada, or you mean Gaia or something?
No, the person who recommended that I go.
Okay. I thought you meant.
If it wasn't for her, something would have taken me out for sure. And when I say taken me out of the game. I would not have gone all the way from Montreal to Miami to live the experience I lived. And then Mars-Venus relationship is just a recognition that our lack of understanding of what it means to be an energetic being, to feel ourselves as energy, creates some imbalances in our male and female polarities. And we bring those imbalances in relationships. In your own relationship to being a man, and your own relationship to the female principle in yourself, and the same thing for women. Their own relationship to being a woman, and their own relationship to the male polarity in themselves. And then we bring that into ourselves. And we wonder why most couples' sexual activity will eventually reduce to zero. It's just a matter of time.
And then how about the last day? The Christic energy house? Is that?
Oh my God. So I sent you that one.
Yeah.
So the Christic energy house transformed my life.
So that's the climax of the whole event, would you say?
Well, I mean, there's many practices we can do. There's many more, but among the 3 listed there, this is the most powerful one. Because what I learned and what I recognized was that in each and every human being, you have the possibility to realize the Christic capacities in consciousness. And we've come to know that in the form of the story of Jesus Christ. But there's many versions or many ways of interpreting that story. So there's many people that see it as Jesus the Savior coming down from heaven, the only Son of God that he sacrificed for us, which is complete and utter nonsense. Coming from spiritual sperm, and all that stuff. It's nonsense. Or there's the version where there's a man or a human like you and I who was an alchemist, who worked his craft and reached or realized a consciousness where there was nothing in him that didn't allow him to identify with the divinity that's everywhere around. So that lightness of being, that ability to remove all the influences, whether they be physical, mental, or psychic, that would otherwise contract his energy and entrap him in materiality, which is the disposition we have, they weren't there. And achieving that consciousness is something that's possible for everyone. And to me, that realization changed my life.
Now, in day 2 or 3, this is when you guys are using ayahuasca too, the ayahuasca potion?
We use ayahuasca all weekend long.
And do you guys refer to that as elixir of truth?
Yeah, We refer to it as elixir of truth.
Okay, and would the alchemical correlate be Philosopher's Stone?
No. So
No?
elixir of truth is the alchemic name of ayahuasca. Okay.
Okay.
So your instinct was good.
Uh-huh.
And really what it represents is that the ayahuasca goes through a cleaning process. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with the studies that show that just putting intentions on water changes its molecular configuration. Okay. So that with that understanding, it's easier to recognize that ayahuasca comes with gifts. It comes with intentions that can stem from the person making the brew, but also the tradition of shamanism that he represents. Okay, and some shamans even put ingredients to better manipulate people. Okay, I'm not saying all of them because, like I said, I respect shamanism because anybody that's willing to share that medicine with people deserves respect.
Yeah.
Anybody that has that drive inside him to want to offer that space of healing for people deserves respect. And most shamans are shamans that are very well intentioned and very good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The only thing that we recognize is that ayahuasca in itself can contain some aspects, energetic, of course, or as esoteric in nature. That's another word for it, that we don't want. Okay? Especially when you go in a realm where you're going to see a lot of darkness and you're going to need the tools to clear it. Because that's what you want to do. People who want to have more peace of mind, more wellness, what they want to do is to remove the influences that are driving them towards actions that are in conflict with peace of mind and well-being. And those are spiritual in nature. Some people refer to them as spiritual parasites. Some people refer to them as demons.
But I'm sure that even if somebody goes through the process that you're describing, for some people it will be really difficult, and they will experience something similar to an ego death. Correct?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. This practice is all about beating up your ego. It's all about removing the aspects of egos that animate you in order for you to be freer in the way you express your being, in the way you express yourself.
Now, does it get to the point where you're almost convinced that you've already passed away?
I mean, everybody's process is different, but I've seen people live through the process of death. I've seen that. And quite frankly, all you can do is just understand that everybody's got to live their process. But it happens, and it's nothing to be afraid of.
So what exactly is a philosopher's stone then, in your understanding?
Well, the philosopher's stone is the heart we have inside, the heart that we want to polish and allow to shine more and more.
It's not the stone that's able to transform other stones into gold. It's not.
Well, I mean, are we talking about something we need to find outside of ourselves?
That's what I perhaps understood it to be.
Anything that tells you need to find something outside of yourself in order to become something, it's bullshit.
No, but do you think this was possible for you without meeting certain people and being in certain locations? Engaging in certain events? I mean, if it wasn't for them, then you wouldn't have reached this enlightenment, right?
Okay. Perhaps. I mean, you can call it enlightenment if you want. I mean...
Or realization, I should say.
No, I'm certainly not realized. Enlightenment is a better term, because realization is having accomplished it, and no, a student. But yeah, of course, the events, everything I live brings me right here. But it's not as if I didn't live it, or it's not as if I had the option not to live it. It's lived. It's there, right? And everything one of my masters says there's no chance play in the in this lawful universe. The dice are always loaded. So everything we do is driven by our psyche, which is the engine of destiny. And we can either walk through karmic destiny, which is really you're doing the things you do, animated by the influences that animate you, or you can walk the path of divine destiny, which is abiding in the mystery, trusting that there's an intelligence that cradles you, that wants the best for your evolution. But the best for your evolution is not necessarily our conception of what we think the best is for us in order to keep the house, keep the job, make the money, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. If people think that evolving consciousness is a priority, well, there's some actions that need to follow it. There's some behaviors that are really incompatible with consciousness, like drinking alcohol. Is it really compatible with evolving your consciousness? I see panel discussions talk about consciousness, and near the end of the question and answer, they say, okay, should we all drink now?
Hey, but these masters that you referenced several times, who are they? How did they attain that title?
I mean, they don't have a title of master because they've proclaimed themselves, or at least that's not how I consider them. I recognize them to be my masters. And because many people that walk my path recognize them to be masters and follow their instructions and are seeing impacts in how their teachings on consciousness can support the evolution of your own consciousness, we recognize them to be masters. I work closely with an organization called the Foundation for the Center of Studies and Investigation on Alchemy. So what we do, we've taken the responsibility to look at all the alchemic literature and do the experiential investigation, because that's the only way you can truly understand whether it works or not. You have to test it on yourself. And the parallel I like to make is it's similar to med students doing literature reviews and then trying out whatever somebody tried out on a patient, and then they try it on a series of patients and perhaps adapt it or put their own take to it or add another element, and then they publish their own papers, and that's how the literature evolves. So we're doing the same thing, but with alchemy.
Mm-hmm. Now, was there an acronym for this organization? That was quite a title.
Yeah. I don't know if they've created an acronym, but can I take that as a suggestion and present it to them?
I mean, it'll be hard to remember it, yeah.
But so it's a foundation for the Center of Investigation and Studies on Alchemy. It's in Caracas, and
Caracas. Are they still? They're probably closed now, eh?
No.
I mean, the times
stronger than ever.
I mean, Venezuela has become precarious in certain last few years.
If I were to, those are the best people I've met in my life, and somehow with their strength and integrity, they've been able to continue operating. And I want to say thrive.
Huh.
I'm going to say thrive despite everything that's been thrown at them.
So is this organization present worldwide or just
it's
countries?
Venezuela, but you have people like me who are in Canada who are available to offer offer to make that space of transformation possible. So to share the alchemy, better said. So you have people like me in Canada. We have people in the States also. And there's about 20 countries that have rainbow warriors.
Oh, all right. So, last few things I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to I wanted to share a quote. I got the note here. It says, "We'll be sharing the elixir of truth, elaborated under the ancient traditions of the Kofans, and
Mm-hmm.
transformed with the alchemy of the heart."
Yeah.
But there are names mentioned like Putumayo, Kofans. Who?
Yeah. And then
Where do they exactly?
Putumayo is the place.
In Venezuela?
No, that's in Colombia.
Oh, okay. And Kofans is the name of the tribe, I guess.
Cofanes, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that's interesting, the concept of the Wirko. Is that how you pronounce it?
The word show.
Vircho. What exactly is that?
Yeah, yeah. Those things are very, very. They're a pain in the ass. They're a pain in the ass. The easiest way I can explain it is for everyone that's read The Power of Now. Now, in our experience, Eckhart Tolle is completely right. There is a spiritual parasite that can project thoughts that has implanted all of our being. So imagine a bark, a tree trunk, and imagine like insects just having made a life for themselves all over the tree. That's what we are. And those things, they feed off of our negative energy. So they can send thoughts, they can send images, they can give us sensations so that we respond with stress. Like, ah, fuck. Ah, shit, I gotta go to work. Ah, traffic again. It's all coming from those weird shows that science can't identify. So it's just like going back in times when there was this Spanish or when bacteria weren't yet discovered, but people are dying.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have everybody that's stressed. Everybody's walking around the earth with an unconscious activation of the stress response, and nobody has a cure for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can do some mindfulness, but why would I want to have my mind full of things? Oh.
Now, are there correlates of this Vircho character in other religions? Is it just imps or
Yeah, like
deities or something different?
demons in religions. So demons are an aspect of those weirdos. But the thing about weirdos is that they have a higher consciousness than you do. So if you were to look at a scale of frequency, like you draw an arrow upwards, okay, 0 at the bottom, and then let's say 100. So let's say they're vibrating at 5, they're vibrating at 6, and making sure that we stay at 5.
This is the scale of consciousness that you're describing?
I'm talking about frequency, let's say like energetic frequency. So when you consider your body as energy that has a frequency, a vibration, okay? So if you were to draw an arrow upwards and create a scale from 0 to 100, okay? So let's say we vibrate at 5, those weirdos, they vibrate at 6. So they're a little smarter, they have more consciousness, they vibrate a little higher. So we confuse them to be us. So that voice inside your head, you think it's you.
So our goal would then to be exceed them in this scale, perhaps?
No, to get rid of it.
Oh, to get rid of them. Oh, okay.
Yeah, of course.
So the two things that reminds me of, you probably heard of archons and their demonic servants in Gnosticism. How they surround the universe and they try to direct the course of fate, and everybody's like basically flowing through the stream against their will, and only the few select among them have the curiosity, the virtue, the power to go against that current.
It's a symbol that strikes a chord, yes.
Yeah. Another thing that reminds me of is Descartes, René Descartes, French philosopher. He had the hypothetical concept of the evil genius when he was trying to determine in his thought experiment of knowing anything to be certain. He made the case that there may be, I could entertain an idea of an evil spirit who's presenting to me everything I see, touch, and feel, but it's his work. You know what I mean? But it would be just as much as an illusion as I think them to be real. But anyways, so I will check out a couple of the books that you mentioned. See if they are something that I'd be interested in purchasing. Now, another note I made of the virtue is, could they be described as almost like a personification of the ego,
No.
or are they something apart from the ego that has like a clout over it?
No. You just it's a complex thing to visualize or conceptualize from the mind. Okay, so just see them as parasites that remove your ability to connect to a greater current in all the ways. By sending you thoughts, this thing's bullshit. I can sending you fear about doing that. Oh my God, ayahuasca would never do that. Right? Where's that coming from? So people don't ask themselves where it's coming from. But it's normal. But once you live this experience and you see it for yourself, then you recognize how compromised we are of those things. All those little demons that people don't want to get rid of, are afraid of getting rid of, because you've seen the movie Exorcist, and that scares the shit out of you.
I've seen trailers of it. I don't think I could do the movie.
Yeah, me neither. I've never seen the movie because it moved so many things inside me that I didn't want to see it. But now I'd be very interested in seeing it. Very, very interested in seeing what are the symbols that it uses to scare people into not getting in that space and forgetting that you're God, you're light, you're love. That thing has no power over you unless it scares you, unless it fools you through fear, because it's always through fear. But we don't recognize all the brands of fear that exist.
So you don't have fear anymore? Would you say?
I don't say I don't have fear anymore. What I will say is that I'm on the process of recognizing every ways in which fear is being projected to me. And when I recognize fear, I'm like, aha, that's fear. Fuck you. But sometimes I get fooled into thinking that, oh yeah, it's for some other reason, because like I said, it's a very, very sophisticated dis-ease. Very sophisticated thing.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. If you're not opposed, that document that you shared with me, it was a Google Docs link. Perhaps I could place that in the description.
Was it Google Docs or was it
Pretty sure it was Google Docs. Or if it's not on Google Docs, you should perhaps consider putting it on Google Docs. It'll be easier to share.
Okay, and you want to share it to people who would be interested in doing alchemy?
Yeah, I was thinking about see if people want to find out more, and perhaps they want to even get down there and do it. Experience
Are you going to drink a cup with me?
I'm gonna consider it. I'm not gonna make a decision now, but
have you ever done ayahuasca?
No, the extent of my experience is psilocybin. Okay. The heroic dose of 5 grams.
And what would stop you from trying 1 cup and seeing what happens? What would stop you?
Man, if I was in the same town, I would have came down this evening. But it's just the
where you at
right now. I'm in Ontario, but I will consider it, and maybe not immediately this year, but in the coming years.
All right.
All right. Thanks for your time, man.
Thank you. Have a good day, my friend.
Yeah, you too.